What's going on, everyone? I'm your host Derek, and welcome to LPE, the show where we attempt to play every single game so you don't have to. The next game on our list is 1943, The Battle of Midway. As you can probably guess, it's the sequel to 1942, which we played last week. It was also developed by Capcom, and having just played it last week, or 1942, this game blew me away. 1942 was decent, but it didn't have much depth, and I was glad to put it behind me once I finished. It felt the complete opposite with 1943. In the main 1943 menu, we're presented with only a single-player option for some reason, no multiplayer like in 1942, and some codes. Codes are a way to start playing at any level and unlock every single stat point if you'd like, though primarily I think they're meant to function as a way to resume playing at a later date, which is pretty awesome for a NES game to have. I actually ended up using the codes because, similarly to 1942, this game is quite challenging and I simply ran out of time to play through the entire game like I normally do. If you start a normal game without codes, you're presented with a skills menu and given 3 points to distribute among the 5 different stats. I cannot express how excited I was to see this. They made a classic arcade shooter into an RPG. Holy My first run, I dumped all my points into offense because if you aren't a glass cannon, then why bother? Turns out this was the slightly wrong approach, what a surprise. What I mean by slightly is that you should sink your points into the offense-oriented skills, but not necessarily all into your offensive power. After having to play the first few levels over and over, I realized that if you want to get far in 1943, you really need to have your special weapons up all the time. Unlike 1942, power-ups do not last until you die, but they're more common. There is a timer at the bottom, and without any points into the special weapons time limit, you don't get a lot of time per power-up, and it almost certainly will not last long enough to finish a boss battle with. Once I realized that sinking points into SW time limit allows you to maintain your special weapons for essentially the entire level, things became a little easier. That's what's great about this game though, there's actually a strategy that you have to learn. My only complaint about the power-up system is that energy level and the special weapon stat seems way less important than all the other stats. The energy system in this game is the only new thing that I'm not a fan of. After I realized this game doesn't have lives, just this energy stat, I tried to run to see if it would benefit from sinking the 3 stat points into energy level. This stat is completely worthless. Regardless of what level your energy stat is, you start out with the same amount. With an energy level stat of 3, you're essentially starting out with 2/3 of your health. It makes no sense to me. What really takes the cake though is the fact that this energy constantly depletes over time, I guess kind of like fuel. So no matter how much energy you have, there's a good chance you're not going to have a whole lot when you arrive at the end of the level, where the boss awaits you. The power-ups you find for your energy barely give you enough to make up for an additional 15 seconds, and then, even if you get 100% score on the boss, the game only rewards you with 40 energy. So now you're starting the next level with 40 out of 100 energy, even though you just won the previous one. To top it all off, the game plays this really awful music when you're below 20 energy. It's not as awful as 1942's so-called music, but the music when you're above 20 energy is actually somewhat pleasant. You just don't get to hear it very often. All they needed to do to fix this is remove the constant decay. That's it. Anyway, enough about the stats. You guys get it. Overall, big fan of the RPG elements, but the energy stat sucks. Capcom has outdone themselves again with 32 pretty large levels. I tried to play through all of them, but I just couldn't. They're quite difficult, and I may go back and play some more later, but I just needed to get this done. The levels I did play were fun. They're more interesting than 1942's. They have more elements, and they even have a lot of secrets. For example, if you want to find stat points, you pretty much have to shoot every random object you see to see if it sparkles and becomes a random power-up. Anyway, another thing I did like about 1943 is in comparison to 1942 is how the power-ups are handled. In 1942, there are few and far between, and there didn't seem to be any pattern for getting them. In 1943, the groups of red planes will always drop a power-up if you kill them all. And one of the most unique elements of this game is that by shooting the power-up, you can cycle through what you want. It took me way too long to figure this out. I was confident it either gave me health or guns, but I had no choice in that matter. Turns out you do. If it's a POW block, you get some energy. If you shoot it, it turns into a special weapon. Continue shooting it, it turns into health again, and this cycle continues all through the special weapons that are available to you. You unlock more by upgrading the special weapons stat. In conclusion, this game is an amazing upgrade from 1942, and I genuinely had fun playing it. The LPE rating system is primarily based on is it worth your time to play today, and 1943 gets 5 out of 7 in this regard. You may be thinking, but Derek, you just talked about how it's this amazing game, why only 5? Well, the thing is, it was amazing for its time, and in comparison to 1942, it really impressed me. And I did have fun playing it, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily worth your time to play. The game's still very dated and its storyline is very limited. You're not going to feel emotion at the end, there's no characters for you to get attached to. It's just a mildly entertaining game to play if you're really bored. If you enjoyed this episode of LP and want to see more NES games, hit that like button, get subscribed, hit the bell even if you really like our content, and I'll see you in the next one.